What happens when a cop arrests a black man for no good reason, only to find out he's an undercover FBI agent on a secret mission? Stay tuned. This one's going to blow your mind. Hey, it's your guy here with a story that's straight out of a movie. We're talking about a black man who's just trying to do his job, but gets caught up in a mess because of a cop's prejudice. This is all about standing tall, keeping your cool, and watching justice come through in the most unexpected way. Let's dive in. It's a warm summer night in Philadelphia, and the city's alive with its usual rhythm. The streets are busy with people grabbing late-night cheesesteaks, kids laughing as they ride bikes under the streetlights, and music spilling out of corner bars. In a quieter part of town, near an old warehouse district, things are a little different. The air here smells faintly of oil and rust, and the buildings are dark, their windows boarded up or cracked. This isn't the kind of place you'd wander into unless you had a reason to be there. And tonight, one man does. His name is Ethan Carter, a 32-year-old black man with a lean build, close-cropped hair, and eyes that seem to notice everything. He's wearing a plain gray hoodie, dark jeans, and scuffed sneakers. Nothing fancy, just enough to blend in. Ethan's not here by accident. He's an FBI agent, one of the best in his unit, working undercover on a high-stakes operation to take down a drug ring that's been tearing up the city. For weeks, he's been posing as a low-level dealer, gaining trust, gathering intel, and getting closer to the big players. Tonight, he's supposed to meet a contact in an alley behind one of the warehouses, someone who's got key information that could crack the case wide open. Ethan moves carefully, his hands in his pockets, his head down but his senses sharp. The alley is narrow, lined with overflowing dumpsters and graffiti-covered walls, the kind of place that feels like it's holding its breath. He checks his watch. 10:47 p.m. His contact's late, which isn't unusual in this line of work, but it's got Ethan on edge. He leans against a brick wall, blending into the shadows, waiting for the signal. A quick flash of headlights from a car at the end of the alley. But before that signal comes, something else does. The wail of a police siren, sharp and sudden, cutting through the quiet night. Ethan's heart skips a beat, but he stays calm, his years of training kicking in. He knows better than to run. That'd only make things worse. A patrol car screeches to a stop at the mouth of the alley, its red and blue lights flashing like a warning. Two officers step out, their boots heavy on the pavement. One's a stocky guy with a buzz cut, maybe in his 40s, named Officer Daniels. The other's younger, taller, with a nervous energy, named Officer Reed. Both are white, and both have their hands on their holsters as they approach. "Hey, you!" Daniels calls out, his voice rough. "What are you doing out here?" Ethan straightens up, keeping his hands where they can see them. "Just waiting for someone," he says, his tone even, his eyes steady. "Is there a problem, officer?" Daniels narrows his eyes, taking a step closer, his flashlight beam hitting Ethan square in the face. "Waiting for someone, huh?" he says, his voice dripping with doubt. "In an alley like this? You expect me to buy that? What's in your pockets? You selling something?" Ethan's stomach tightens, but he doesn't flinch. He knows exactly what's happening here. He's seen it too many times, lived it too many times. A black man in a hoodie standing in a rough part of town. To Daniels, that's all it takes to make him a suspect. "I'm not selling anything," Ethan says, keeping his voice calm. "I'm just standing here. I haven't done anything wrong." Reed, the younger officer, shifts uncomfortably, his hand still on his holster but his eyes darting between Ethan and Daniels. "Let's see some ID," Reed says, trying to sound tough but coming off more unsure. Ethan hesitates for a split second. His real ID, his FBI badge, is tucked in a hidden pocket inside his jacket. But he can't show it, not without blowing his cover. This operation is too important, and he's worked too hard to get this far. "I don't have my ID on me," he says, which is technically true for his undercover persona. "Look, I'm not causing any trouble. Can I go?" Daniels laughs, a short, harsh sound that echoes off the alley walls. "No ID?" "Yeah, that's what they all say," he snaps. "Turn around, hands against the wall. You're coming with us." Ethan's heart pounds harder now, but he keeps his cool, his mind racing through his options. He knows he could reveal he's FBI, but that would ruin months of work, maybe put lives at risk. He also knows that arguing with Daniels right now won't end well. Guys like him don't back down when they think they're in control. So Ethan turns slowly, placing his hands against the rough brick wall, feeling the cold metal of handcuffs snap around his wrists as Daniels reads him his rights. "You're under arrest for loitering and suspicion of drug activity," Daniels says, his voice smug as he pats Ethan down. "Should have stayed out of places like this, buddy." Reed looks uneasy, like he's not sure this is right, but he doesn't say anything, just follows Daniels as they lead Ethan to the patrol car. Ethan's jaws tight, his mind working overtime. He's not just angry, he's worried. If his contact shows up now and sees him with the cops, the whole operation could fall apart. But for now, all he can do is play along and hope he gets a chance to fix this. They take Ethan to the precinct, a gray, boxy building that smells like burnt coffee and old paper. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a harsh glow on the chipped linoleum floor. Ethan's sitting in a holding cell, his hands still cuffed, his gray hoodie slightly wrinkled from the rough pat-down. The cell is small, with a metal bench bolted to the wall and graffiti scratched into the paint. Names, dates, curses. Ethan's been in worse spots than this, but that doesn't make it any easier. He's thinking about his team, the other agents counting on him to pull this off. He's thinking about his mom, who always worried he'd get into trouble working undercover. And he's thinking about Daniels, the way his smirk said everything. This isn't about evidence. It's about who Ethan is, or who Daniels thinks he is. Back at the precinct's front desk, Daniels is filling out paperwork, joking with another officer about how he caught another one. Reed's standing nearby, flipping through Ethan's file, or rather the lack of one, since Ethan's undercover alias doesn't have much of a paper trail. "This guy's clean," Reed says quietly, his brow furrowed. "No priors, no warrants. Maybe we should let him go." Daniel snorts, not even looking up from his forms. "Clean? Come on, Reed. You saw him. Hoodie, alley, no ID. Guys like that are always up to something. Trust me, I've been doing this longer than you." Reed doesn't push back, but he's not convinced either. He's only been on the job a year, and he's still figuring out how to stand up to guys like Daniels, who act like they know everything. He glances toward the holding cells, wondering if they made a mistake, but he shakes it off and goes back to his coffee. Meanwhile, Ethan's sitting in the cell, his back against the wall, his mind working through the situation. He knows he can't stay here long. If he misses his meet with his contact, the drug ring might get spooked and disappear, taking months of work with them. But he also knows that blowing his cover isn't an option. Not yet. He's been trained for moments like this, taught how to stay calm, how to think 3 steps ahead. So he waits, watching the clock on the wall tick closer to midnight, hoping for a chance to turn this around. About an hour later, a new player enters the scene. Special Agent Laura Martinez, Ethan's supervisor at the FBI. Laura's a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a voice that can cut through any excuse. She's been monitoring Ethan's operation from a field office across town, and when he didn't check in at his usual time, she knew something was wrong. A quick call to a contact in the Philly PD confirmed her worst fear. Ethan's been arrested. Laura grabs her badge, her phone, and her car keys, her jaw set as she heads to the precinct. She's not just here to get Ethan out, she's here to make sure whoever did this pays for it. Back at the precinct, Ethan's still in the cell, his patience wearing thin, but his face calm. He's been through enough to know that losing his cool won't help. He thinks back to his first day at the FBI Academy, when his instructor told him, "You're going to face people who think you don't belong, cops, criminals, even other agents. Don't let them shake you. You're here for a reason." That advice has carried him through years of undercover work, through moments when he felt like the whole world was against him. And it's carrying him now, as he sits in this cell, waiting for his chance. Outside, Daniels is still at the desk, sipping coffee and bragging about his bust. Reed's sitting nearby, scrolling through his phone, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling in his gut. Then the precinct door swings open, and Laura Martinez walks in like she owns the place. She's wearing a dark blazer, her FBI badge clipped to her belt, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. The room goes quiet as every officer turns to look at her, sensing something big is about to happen. "I'm looking for Officer Daniels," Laura says, her voice calm but firm, her eyes scanning the room. Daniel stands up, wiping his hands on his pants, his smirk fading as he sees the badge. "That's me," he says, trying to sound confident. "What's this about?" Laura doesn't smile. "You arrested a man tonight in the warehouse district," she says. "Gray hoodie, no ID. I need to see him. Now." Daniels blinks, caught off guard. "He's in holding," he says, his tone defensive. "Caught him loitering in an alley? Probably dealing. What's the FBI's interest in a guy like that?" Laura's eyes narrow and she steps closer, her voice low but sharp. "A guy like that?" she repeats. "You have no idea who you just arrested, do you?" Daniels opens his mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. Reed, still sitting at the desk, looks up, his coffee forgotten, his heart starting to race. Something's wrong. He can feel it. Laura doesn't wait for Daniels to answer. "Take me to him," she says, her tone leaving no room for argument. "And you better hope you didn't screw this up too badly." Daniels leads Laura to the holding cells, his usual swagger gone, his hands fidgeting at his sides. Reed trails behind, his face pale, like he's just realized he's in way over his head. They reach Ethan's cell, and Laura looks through the bars, her expression softening for a second when she sees him. Ethan glances up and their eyes meet. He doesn't say anything, but there's a flicker of relief in his face. He knows Laura's got this. "Open the cell," Laura says, her voice like steel. Daniels hesitates, his hand hovering over his keys, but one look at Laura's badge makes him move. He unlocks the door, the metal creaking as it swings open. Ethan stands up, rubbing his wrist where the cuffs left red marks. His gray hoodie still wrinkled, but his posture straight, like he's never been more in control. Laura turns to Daniels, her eyes cold. "This man is an FBI agent," she says, each word hitting like a hammer. "He's been working undercover for months on an operation you just put at risk. You arrested him without evidence. Based on what? The way he looks? The color of his skin?" Daniel's face goes white, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I didn't know," he stammers. "He didn't have ID. He was in a bad area, I thought." "You thought wrong," Laura cuts him off, her voice sharp enough to make Reed flinch. "You profiled him, plain and simple, and now you're going to answer for it." Ethan steps out of the cell, his eyes locked on Daniels, but he doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. Laura's saying everything that needs to be said. Reed, standing a few feet away, looks like he wants to disappear, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes fixed on the floor. He's starting to realize just how big a mistake they made, and he's not sure how to process it. Laura pulls out her phone and dials a number, her voice calm but commanding as she speaks. "This is Agent Martinez. I need a team at the 12th Precinct in Philly ASAP. We've got a compromised agent and an officer who needs to be investigated." She hangs up, then turns back to Daniels. "You're off this case," she says, "and you're suspended pending a full review. Don't make this worse for yourself." Daniels stares at her, his face a mix of shock and anger, but he knows better than to argue with the FBI. He mutters something under his breath and storms off, leaving Reed standing there, looking like a kid who just got caught stealing. Laura ignores him for now. She's focused on Ethan. "You okay?" she asks, her voice softer, her eyes searching his face. "I'm good," Ethan says, his voice steady, though there's a tiredness in it that wasn't there before. "Just need to get back to work." Laura nods, a small smile tugging at her lips. "That's my guy," she says. "Let's get you out of here. We've got a mission to finish." Within an hour, Ethan's back on the street, his gray hoodie swapped for a clean shirt, his FBI badge tucked safely in his pocket. The alley meeting didn't happen. His contact got spooked by the police lights. But Ethan's already working on a new plan, coordinating with Laura and the rest of the team to keep the operation alive. He's shaken, sure, but he's not broken. He's been through too much to let one bad night stop him. Back at the precinct, things are moving fast. A team from the FBI's Internal Affairs Unit shows up, pulling Daniel's files and interviewing Reed, who's spilling everything he knows, trying to save himself. Daniels is officially suspended, his badge taken, his career hanging by a thread. The precinct captain, a gruff older guy who's seen it all, calls a meeting with the whole department the next day, laying out new rules for stops and arrests. No more assumptions, he says, his voice heavy. We're better than this. Or at least we should be. Word of what happened spreads through the city like wildfire. A local news station picks up the story, running a segment called Undercover Agent Wrongly Arrested, a case of profiling. Community activists hold a rally outside the precinct, demanding better training for officers, and Ethan's name, though not his face to protect his cover, becomes a symbol of resilience. People start sharing his story online with hashtags like number Justice for Ethan and number End Profiling, and soon politicians are weighing in, promising reforms. Ethan doesn't pay much attention to the noise. He's back in the field, meeting a new contact, setting up a new sting, doing what he does best. But late at night, when he's alone in his apartment, he thinks about that moment in the alley, the way Daniels looked at him like he was nothing. He thinks about his dad, who used to tell him stories about walking home from work and getting stopped by cops for no reason. It's not right, his dad would say, his voice quiet but firm. But you keep going, Ethan. You show him who you are. And that's exactly what Ethan does. He keeps going, not just for himself, but for everyone who's ever been judged before they could even speak. This story isn't just about one bad arrest. It's about what happens when you stand up to prejudice, when you refuse to let someone else define you. Ethan Carter didn't just walk out of that cell. He walked out stronger, ready to keep fighting, ready to keep proving he belongs. If this story got you fired up, hit that subscribe button for more like it.